So now the question of whether I'm right-wing or left-wing is being raised. Which is a strange one, because I'm in the same territory as Pat Condell there. I remember him remarking that he had been a socialist and has been robbed of that, largely because of the strong feelings that he holds about Islam. Well, ditto, really. Although I am beginning to suspect, well, I believe there isn't really a left or a right anymore. It's heading towards one party. Corbyn, who is supposed to be so very, very far left, is after all pro-EU. He didn't used to be, but he is now. In all other respects, Corbyn would have got my vote. But the fact that he's pro-EU means that he can't have it. Even if, well, he didn't get it at the local elections. And I very, very much doubt that I'll be around for the next general election. Or would even want to be. Basically, I don't think there's a left or a right anymore, and in a lot of respects, they've actually swapped sides anyway. Very confusing. When I had a wonderful few years in which I was totally free of politics, and I have to say I was very happy in those years. I did not watch TV. I don't own a TV, even now. I almost never read a newspaper. I was a happy bunny. Until I began to notice what was going on in around 2010, when the new government got in. And everything and everyone changed overnight. Places which had been staffed by nice, kind, friendly, helpful people were suddenly staffed by goddamn Nazis. All the places which had been available to help were no longer available to help. People in general turned from nice to nasty overnight, it seemed to me. So, when I joined Facebook, it was largely to see whether we'd been taken over by fascists or communists. It's a mixture of both, isn't it? The point is that it's a dictatorship. It's a one-party government. And we saw that in the coalition. If ever the Lib Dems had a chance to do something useful, that was it. And what did they do? I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. They sucked Cameron's dick. Or rather, Clegg did, to be specific. So, that rules out for me voting Labour, voting Lib Dem, I would have never voted Tory, ever. But let me see, even as far as feminism is concerned, I can't tell left from right anymore. Big argument today about what kind of feminist is which, who's what and who's the third wave and who's progressive and who's rad femme. Well, I've always considered myself rad femme. However, the rad femmes now believe, I'm totally with them on transgender, totally. Anyone who doesn't know my views on transgender, look at what the rad femmes have to say about it. That's where I am. However, their views on prostitution seem to be far right, whereas what I would have thought the rad femmes were far left originally. Not only do they want to criminalise prostitution, which is very much like criminalising alcohol. It doesn't work. The black market will just get blacker, Oh, am I allowed to say that? they actually sincerely believe that prostitution is rape. And that is where I have to sever all ties with rad femmes. Sadly. Partly because I do believe in a woman's right to choose, and if she actually chooses to be a prostitute, good luck to her. If she's trafficked, that's something else, of course, and if she's coerced, that's something else, of course, and if she's underage, that's something else, of course. But if none of those things apply, and she has chosen to do that, then it's her body, and why should she not? Assuming she takes precautions so that neither she nor anyone else gets diseases. But no, according to rad femmes, prostitutes are being raped, and their customers are rapists. Well, that disadvantages a heck of a lot more than prostitutes. It's also trivializing actual rape, because I can't imagine any rape victim saying, "Oh yeah, what was done to me was exactly the same as what is done to prostitutes who are paid for what they do." And again now, according to radical feminists, payment does not constitute consent. Well, that puts capitalism out of business, doesn't it, really? I mean, you can hand over your money in a shop and, take your Mars bar, and I'm sorry about that comparison. It was actually made to me by a Catholic who was training to be a priest, and it was about women. And it went that in this blasted seminary, the consensus was that you might as well ordain a Mars bar as ordain a woman. Well, of course, I don't agree with that. So sorry about the Mars bar analogy, but if you pay for a Mars bar and then take the Mars bar, have you in point of fact stolen it? Or, although the Mars bar couldn't consent, was there consent at some point, i.e. the person handing over the Mars bar presumably consented to hand it over? So I have to cut off radical feminism on that issue, and the other rather crazy issue, the insane conclusion they've come to, that what they choose to call PIV, which means penis in vagina, i.e. heterosexual intercourse, is unnatural. I fail to see how anyone could possibly reach that conclusion, because after all, it is the means by which we reproduce thus far. And I'd quite like it to carry on being that way, because the minute an artificial womb is developed, which it might well be, I have this nasty suspicion that women will be wiped off the face of the earth. They only need an artificial vagina, then, to satisfy their sexual needs. Sorry about this, man. And of course, those are already around in abundance. If they also have an artificial womb, I can quite easily see a large percentage of men saying, "We don't need women anymore. Let's just wipe them off the face of the earth." Misogyny is, I would have thought it was a statement of the obvious, is institutionalized globally. It's a global phenomenon. So I would actually rather hope that penis in vagina continues to be the method of reproduction for the human race. God, consider the other alternatives. Cloning. All these bloody hybrids. Oh my God. Everything that's being done in that field is just so frightening. Genetic engineering. So that's it. I don't know radical feminists seem to have shifted from left to right, or some weird ground I can't actually pin down, and I can't be with them anymore. And progressive feminists spend all their time fighting for the rights of transgenders, a tiny, tiny percentage of the population, although it's growing, if you can believe the newspapers, because now we have 3-year-olds who are apparently transgender. In other words, if your little boy wants to wear a pink dress, he must be transgender. And if your little girl wants to wear blue trousers, she must be transgender. Notwithstanding the fact that, in case no one noticed, we came into this world stark naked, both sexes. And pink has only been assigned to girls since 1926 or so, and the same applies to blue, assigned to boys. This is not, if you'll pardon the pun, dyed in the wool. There is nothing to say anywhere. There is no code book, rule book anywhere. It's purely cultural. To say that girls have to wear dresses or pink, or to say that boys have to wear trousers or blue. And it doesn't. It seems to me that the confusion is not so much about what sex, gender they are. The confusion is simply that they, when it's male to female, they appear to like pretty dresses and makeup and wigs and high heels. And I'm sure I said this on some other video. Go ahead and wear them. That's fine with me. But I will never back transgenders in the political arena, ever, ever, ever. Because as someone actually, Wafa Sultan put it earlier on a video I was listening to, nobody has the right to tell you what you are. Yeah, they can self-identify by all means, and if they say they're women, well, I'll say biologically, I'm sorry, but you're not. If you feel like a woman, carry on feeling like a woman, but I'd like to know which one you feel like and what you mean by that. But it doesn't require anything other than changing clothes, as far as I can see. I have said this before, blast it. So I'm not only excised from, oh Christ, progressive feminists, I mean, oh, they're left, aren't they? Yes, they're kind of far left. And I can't be with them anymore. No way, Jose. There are far more important issues to fight over than transgender issues. Sorry, but let them fight for themselves. Most of them are grown men. There seem to be very few women wanting to be men, strangely enough. It's always the other way around, as far as I can tell. And it's certainly the men who want to be women telling me that I have to identify as cisgender, and that is where I draw the line totally. I have said this before, blast it. I don't have to identify as cisgender. Because if you tell me that I have to identify as cis, I'll tell you that you have to identify as male. We're quits. I don't have to identify as anything I don't want to identify as. Nobody gets to call me what I'm not. So, let me see. We now have radfems apparently on the right, intersectional stroke, progressive feminists on the left. I've fallen out with both. Because I'm a feminist, I detest the religion of Islam, which treats women so appallingly from birth to death, which is quite often far too soon, thanks to their ridiculous, obscene, barbaric laws, Sharia. Apparently, detesting the religion of Islam makes me far right, which is news to me, I have to say. If I were far right, I would hate black people, which I do not. Oh God, I would be anti-Semitic, which I am not. You see, although I don't like any religion anymore, I've never heard a Jew say, unless you convert to Judaism, we will kill you. Nor have I ever heard a Jew say, if you draw depictions of our God and they don't call it God, what do they call it? I forget. They don't threaten to kill you for drawing their God. Nor do Christians, to be fair. So I'm actually not what I would consider to be far right. I merely have a dislike of A, Islam, and B, uncontrolled immigration. If we were talking about immigration in small numbers, and people who, because their numbers were small, would have to learn the language and integrate into our culture, I wouldn't have a problem. But when they immigrate in huge numbers, they don't learn the language and they don't integrate, they just form their own little groups. I always feel, well, one of two things these days. I feel I either have to prove I'm not a racist somehow, by referring to my Indian friend in Southampton or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. I don't have to prove it. And now, even if I, identify as English and want to fly the English flag, I'm a racist, apparently. Although any other nation can fly their flag, including the Welsh, right here. So, I have apparently gone over to the far right on those two issues. The religion of Islam, and mass immigration, mass uncontrolled immigration of people who have no intention of integrating. Absolutely no intention. And a clearly stated intention of not integrating. Such as, for example, the Muslim schools, which will not allow non-Muslims in to inspect them, and which say they don't want anything to do with British values. Well, excuse me, what are you doing in Britain in that case? You could have stayed in your own country if you didn't want to learn the language and didn't want to integrate and didn't want to have anything to do with infidels. There are countries in the Middle East which will accommodate you perfectly. So here I am, stranded. Neither left nor right anymore. Well, perhaps that's no bad thing. But I was kind of asked that question by an FB friend just now, and didn't know how to answer it. That's it. Too much breath. Well, too little breath. Too much expended.